Hi all, I wanted to post this story here to see if anyone has seen something similar. I've never posted on Reddit before, so forgive me if I don't know the exact formats or etiquette and such. For context, I live in rural northwest Arkansas. I was in the back seat of a car riding through the woods this past December when I saw it. It was very tall and it was walking on all fours, but its hind legs brought its rear up a good foot or so above its head. I would say it was about as tall as a person. It was very thin and bony, but it looked like it had grayish pale skin over its body. It was walking just behind the tree line on the side of the road. The car was going about 40 miles per hour on a straight road, so I had a few solid seconds of looking at this thing before we passed it, and I know it wasn't just an optical illusion. I saw the thing clear as day. My family said it might be a deer with chronic wasting disease, but it was much taller than any deer I've ever seen, and its body wasn't shaped like a deer at all. It had a humanoid face that I can't really describe other than looking sort of like a small human head, but with something wrong with it, like sickly gray and emaciated. No antlers or anything, just a freaky face. Its mouth was hanging open and it had solid black eyes. It was honestly terrifying, and it still has me pretty freaked out. I've been trying to figure out what it may have been, but I haven't found anyone who's seen something matching that description. My closest guess was that it might be a Wendigo or a Skinwalker, and I figured I'd post here to see if anyone has any theories on what it could have been. A few years ago, as I was trying to sleep, I opened my eyes and saw this enormous red-looking tree/Venus-shaped entity looking at me in the middle of my room. I had gotten really freaked out, so I turned on my side, away from it. A few minutes later, when I thought it was gone, I opened my eyes again, and saw it right at my face, as if its face was taking up my whole range of vision for how close it was. Both times I saw it, it was like a flash. Saw it for an instant. Both cases felt intense fear. What is it? Has anyone else experienced this? Could this be a hallucination, or is it something paranormal? First off, I'm not the best writer, but I've wanted others' opinions and hopefully find similar experiences to mine. I went to southern Utah for a wilderness therapy program I was put into when I was 17 from my father. The town I got to called Kanab in the lower part of southern Utah had the program I went to called Wingate Wilderness Therapy. Overall a great program, but my first couple weeks I tried to run away, given I'm from Michigan. Doesn't make a lot of sense now, but on my second week on a Friday we were setting up camp for the weekend on these low mountains in the upper fields called the Whites, and I remember I made up my mind one last time to run and booked it. I made it down this small dirt access trail along the side of the mountain, going down on a curve. The first thing I noticed before I came around one bend was how quick it was starting to get dark around me, and when I came around this one bend, I remember about 45 yards or 40 yards away was the 6, 7 or 9 tall black mass that had the muscular and skinny kind of build. I couldn't make out what it was at all, but I remember instantly feeling on edge and nervous. I yelled at it, asking who it was and what did it want, but it never moves at all. By that point too, I remember how dark it was nearly all around me, and I started hearing footsteps run down from up around the bend I came from. I looked back real quick and couldn't see anything. I remember quickly turning back to whatever it was down the road in front of me, and it was gone, and by that point after I could only see an arm's length in front of me, but I remember hearing those footsteps running down still towards me from where I'd come. I started yelling, "Who was there? Who are you? What do you want?" and started hearing someone call my name and yell for me and ask if anyone's was out there. I remember answering and say, "Yes, I'm here, who are you?" but the person didn't hear me. From about 20 yards it seemed away in the dark, and heard the footsteps get about 3 steps away before they stopped, and the dude said, "Is anyone there?" and I answered him. He was a camp guide from the program from another camp I ran past at some point, and he was coming to see if he could find me. I asked him multiple times if he heard me responding to him about 50 yards away or 30, and he said, "No, I never heard you, not till I got super close," and at that point I just broke down. I have no idea what I'd seen, and I just felt so vulnerable and scared and weak just in an instant after he told me he couldn't hear me. Also remember 2 additional staff members that were driving water trucks pulled up, and this dude Andrew that drove one wore this huge deer antler necklace and ghost beads which are dried up juni berries, but he confirmed almost for sure that I'd met a skinwalker and told me some of his stories, and which is why he wore the necklaces. Sorry for the bad punctuation and spelling all, but I think I seen a skinwalker. Got a few more stories to post as well from my 2 months living in Mount Zion. My story is from 2014, I was 19 and it happened in the middle of the day, between 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. I can't remember exactly. I was in Morocco, in a very small village of 30 people near a beach in the Atlantic coast. There were 2 dogs in front of the house to protect it. My family wanted to go to the beach, but I was starting to get flu symptoms, so I decided to stay in the house and rest, even if I would be alone all day. I didn't want to catch a cold at the beach or whatever. From now on, I have to say that I did not take any medication or anything else to feel better, so it is not a case of hallucinations. I was laying on the bed, just reading a fantasy book. No music, no TV, nothing that could do any sort of noise. At some point, I heard the 2 dogs barking so loudly, as if an unknown person was coming. I went to the window quickly, but no one was there, no family member, no stranger, nobody. Few seconds after hearing the dogs barking, I started to notice that I was hearing another noise. A very strange noise coming from the kitchen. It was like whispers. Like if 2 or 3 women were whispering some sort of incantations in the kitchen. I was so afraid, I didn't know where these whispers came from. It was not from the pipes, nor from the wind. There was no wind that day. It was just there, floating in the air, and I couldn't do anything to make it stop. After 3 minutes, the whispers and the barking stopped simultaneously. Since that day, I am always afraid to be alone in remote houses like that, especially if no one is there. And I am also afraid of dogs. I never knew what happened that day, and I never actually asked anyone what it could have been. I have never had any other weird experience. Hello everyone. I was asked to try here again. My 3-year-old son has been telling me for the last few days about a life he had before. I don't really care much about it because of course I know that a 3-year-old child doesn't think much about it. I'm also a realist. I don't believe in God or reincarnation. Still, it made me curious. He told me that in another life he had a cat, we have a dog. That his dad used to have a different skin color. That he worked as a police officer. We live in Germany. This is interesting because my 3-year-old son could tell me exactly what the beach in Los Angeles looks like. And no, I didn't play GTA and let him watch. That left me extremely confused. Of course he didn't tell me it was Los Angeles. But the description was clear. I'm at a loss what to do. I don't believe in anything like that. But I can't just ignore it either. I care too much. Do you have any experiences? Do you think this is real or was it just a coincidence? My big sister just told me a story that I'm not sure how to process, but I believe her 100%. She was 15 years old, back in the late 80s or early 90s. One day she walked into our suburban Mi2 car garage, where there was only one car parked. As she turned the corner, there was a small white man, about 3.5 feet tall, standing there, looking directly at her. She froze, not understanding what she was seeing when it said to her, "Well, hello young lady," then vanished in front of her eyes. Completely freaked out and still not understanding what happened, she ran to our dad and told him, naturally. He checked the garage and there was no evidence of anything out of the outside. My dad doesn't believe in anything paranormal. A total, unrelenting skeptic. He just admitted that he believed her and that he remembers how incredibly mortified my sister was and mentioned that her story hadn't changed a bit in the 40 years since then. Had anyone ever heard it, seen anything like this before? We are trying to piece together what it could have been. She said the little white man looked similar to a very small Gandalf the White, with long white hair parted down the middle, long white beard, in robes. I can hear the family's tone when they say they believe her. They don't. But I'm convinced she's speaking the truth. What do you think? For some background, our whole family is Muslim. We only believe in jinns and the existence of them in the other world. She lives in my now dead grandmother's house. When this story took place, she was still alive. There is a narrow hallway parallel to the doorway of the living room. Next to the living room is the kitchen. On the left of the narrow hallway, is her room. One night, she went out to get a glass of water. As she was coming back to her room, she saw a tall dark horned shadow in front of the narrow hallway. She stared at it for what seemed like hours, until she closed her eyes and recited a prayer. It was gone. The next night, she went to get a glass of water and it was closer to her than the night before. She closed her eyes, prayed and it was gone again. The next night, she tried to see if it would return, and it did. It was so close to her that she could see its every detail of its face. She said more prayers and it never came back.
Mosey on down to the Atomic Shaman Trading Post. We have t-shirts, decals, refrigerator magnets and other swag for sale. What better way to show your support for the show? Our merch can only be found on t.pub/lit/Atomic Shaman Trading Post.
Like, share, subscribe and be sure to check the notification bell. Follow the Atomic Shaman on Twitter at Motel and RV Park. Listen to Paranormal Green Text Stories on Atomic Shaman TTS on YouTube. Catch the live streams of Atomic Shaman Sweat Lodge only on Rumble.